No match, no lighter. Watch. That's a piece of flint and an old file, and this black rag is char cloth. Cotton I cooked in a tin till it went to carbon. One strike. See that spark catch and glow? That's not the flint burning. That's a fleck of the steel, shaved off and burning in the air. Now into a handful of dry grass, and I blow, and there's your fire. Paul could do it faster than you can find a lighter in your pocket. Here's the twist. Number 12 they gave to children by the spoonful. And it's a poison, I'll tell you the honest truth of it. Number 21 found water with a forked stick. And the government says it's nonsense, and they're half right. And number 1 only works if you trust the man on the other end of it with your life. Route Moore lost Appalachian secrets. Let's count them down. Number 25, hewing a log square with a broadaxe. Before there was a sawmill in every county, a square beam started as a round log and a man with an axe. You snapped a chalk line down the log, then stood up on top of it and scored. Chopped notches every foot or so down to that line with a felling axe. Then you took the broadaxe, which is flat on one side and beveled on the other, so it planes true. And you hewed the waste off clean to the line. 4 sides, and you'd turned a tree into a timber. The mechanism's in that flat side. A regular axe is beveled both sides and wants to dive. A broadaxe rides flat like a big chisel and takes the wood to the line. You hew from the butt up, or you'll tear the grain past your line and ruin the face. A good hewer left a beam you'd swear went through a machine. There's barns standing in this county on timber squared by eye 150 years ago, and not one of us left could do it the way they did. Number 24, fire from flint, steel, and char cloth. You saw me do it in the open. Here's the whole of it. The spark is not the flint. The flint's just a hard, sharp edge. What burns is a curl of the steel, shaved off so thin it catches fire in the air the second it's exposed. Fresh cut steel that fine will burn on its own, and that's your spark. The trick the whole thing turns on is the char cloth. Plain cotton or linen, cooked in a closed tin over the fire till it's black through, no air getting to it. That charred cloth will catch a spark and hold it as a glowing coal, where a raw cloth would just spark and die. You catch the coal on the cloth, fold it into a nest of dry grass and bark, and you blow it up into flame. The failure is damp. Damp char cloth won't take. Damp tinder won't catch. You kept both bone dry in a tin in your coat, and a man who did never worried about a wet matchbook a day in his life. Number 23, the figure 4 deadfall and the trap that doesn't exist. Let me start with a lie you'll see all over the internet, because catching lies is what this channel's for. You'll see somebody claim a snare that sets itself back after it catches. A self-resetting snare you whittle from a sapling. There is no such thing. A snare you build from a bent sapling and a string catches once, and then you walk out and reset it by hand. Anybody tells you different has never run a trap line. Here's a real one, the figure 4 deadfall. 3 sticks notched so they lock into the shape of a 4. An upright, a slanted trigger, and a bait stick, holding up a flat rock or a heavy log. An animal worries the bait, the 4 collapses, the weight drops. It's in the Army's own survival book. The whole skill is in the notches. Cut them too deep or too shallow, and it either won't hold or won't trip, and you'll stand there setting it 20 times. Paul could carve a set that'd hold steady in the wind and still drop if a mouse breathed on the bait. Number 22, laying a dry stone wall, not a speck of mortar. A wall built of nothing but stone and gravity that stood 200 years, where the concrete one somebody poured in 1980 is already heaving and cracked. The secret is it's really two walls leaning into each other, wide at the base and tapering in as it climbs. You build both faces, pack the middle with small stone they call harding, and ever so often lay a long stone clear across both faces to tie them, a through stone. Every stone tipped down and in, so water sheds and settling only locks it tighter. The failure is one word. Never stack a stone so its length points out the face. That's a stone the frost will shed right out of the wall. Set it in, not out. A wall laid right heals its own settling. It just tightens down on itself for 200 years. Number 21, water witching and the honest truth of it. A man would cut a forked branch, walk your land holding it out, and where it dipped, that's where you dug your well. And here I've got to be square with you, the way this channel always is. There's no truth in the stick. None. The Geological Survey looked hard at this way back in 1917 and again since, and there's nothing to it. The stick's got no power to find water. And they said the plain thing that explains the whole business. In most country, there's water under near everywhere you dig. So a man's gonna hit it whether he waved a stick or not. But here's the part they leave out, and it's why I won't laugh at the old witches. A good one was reading the ground, the lay of the land, the green places in a dry August where the ground stayed soft. He was reading real signs and giving the stick the credit. The stick was theater. The eye underneath it was real, and that eye is the thing actually worth having. Number 20, tying a broom. A store broom is a throwaway. A broom a man tied from broom corn over a good handle, swept a puncheon floor for 20 years and swept it cleaner. You grow the broom corn, which is a kind of sorghum that heads out in long straw. You cut it and cure it, then lay the straw around the end of a handle, and here's the whole craft. You wet it, and you wind it on under all the tension you can pull, wire or strong cord, wrapping tight and building up the shoulders even all the way around. Then you stitch it flat so it sweeps on the broad side. The failure is a loose wind. Bind it slack and the straw pulls out a handful at a time, and the head goes lopsided in a month. Bound tight and stitched, it wears down square and keeps sweeping. The broom tying man came through, selling them 2 for a quarter, and there's not 1 in 50 counties now. Number 19, the wingbone turkey call. You want to call a wild turkey to you, the oldest way in this country is to call him with a piece of another turkey, the wingbone call. You take the 3 bones out of a turkey's wing, the radius, the ulna, the big humerus, clean them hollow, and fit them together small into big, like a little trumpet. You don't blow it. You put the small end to your lips and kiss a sharp little suck of air through it, and it yelps just like a hen. The natives here were making these thousands of years back. The Turkey Federation keeps one dated near 4,000 years old. The failure is a wet call or a cracked joint. Either one turns your hen to a squawk that'll empty the woods. Kept dry, with that kiss practiced clean, one would talk a gobbler right off the roost and into the pot. Number 18, chinking and daubing a cabin. A log cabin isn't logs alone. Logs are round, and round logs leave a gap between every course. And what you do with that gap is the difference between a warm house and a winter of misery. You chink it. First, you pack the gap tight with something stiff, split sticks, flat rock, chips wedged in. Then you daub over it, inside and out, with a mud of clay and sand, a little lime if you had it, hog hair or straw worked in to bind it. The stick chinking holds the daub so a big soft gap of mud doesn't just fall out of the wall. The failure is daub with no chinking behind it, or too much clay. It cracks in the first hard summer and drops out, and you're redaubing every fall. Mixed and packed right, it stood for years with a touch-up where it needed. Number 17, reading a mule's age in its mouth. A man buying a mule didn't take the seller's word on how old it was. he opened its mouth. The whole age of the animal is written in its front teeth, if you can read it. When they're young, the cups, the dark hollows and the biting teeth, are deep, and they wear away with the years, gone near about by 11. There's a groove comes down the corner tooth, Galvain's groove they call it, shows up around 10 and is gone again by 30. And the teeth slant out further the older the animal gets. That's where long in the tooth comes from. The gums draw back and the tooth looks longer. Now the honest note, even the horse doctors say no one sign is sure alone. You read them together. But a man who knew mouths didn't get sold a 15-year-old mule for a 5-year-old's price, and plenty who couldn't did. Everything so far a man did with his hands. From here down we get into the things they read, the weather, the signs, the ground. And the first one, they'll swear to you it works. If you want the knowing before it's gone, subscribe. I put one of these up every few days. Number 16, banking the fire. Matches were dear and flint and steel was work. So the smartest thing you did all day was the last thing. You never let the fire go out. Last thing at night, you raked the live coals into a tight heap and covered them over with a few inches of ash. That ash blanket chokes the air down, so the coals can't blaze up and burn out. They just sit and smolder slow under there all night, holding their heat. Come morning, you rake the ash back, and there's your live coals, and a little kindling, and a breath, and you've got flame in a minute. No striking a light in the cold dark. The failure is too little ash, or a draft, either one, and your coals flare up in the night, and by morning it's dead gray. Banked right, a good hardwood fire held a coal 8-10 hours easy. Ma kept a hearth that hadn't gone stone cold in years. Number 15, coursing a wild bee tree. This one's a kind of magic, and it's real. Before you kept bees, you found them, and you found a wild bee tree by following the bees home through open air. You catch a few honeybees off the flowers in a little box, let them fill up on honey you've put in there, and let one go. It circles up and flies dead straight for home. That straight shot is where we get the word beeline. You mark it, move off to the side a good ways, and do it again. And where the two lines cross, that's your tree. A fella named Seeley wrote a whole book on it lately, but Paul did it by feel. Now this is finding wild bees, mind, different from keeping them in a gum. The failure is trusting one crooked bee. You take several and average them by eye. Done right, you walk straight to a hollow tree full of honey nobody else could find. Number 14, growing your own gourds. A gourd is a thing you grow into a tool. Hardshell gourds, dried out, gave a mountain family its dippers, its seed storage, its bird houses, and it cost a seed and a summer. You grow them on a fence, leave them on the vine till the first frost, then cure them somewhere dry and airy for weeks till the shell goes hard and the seeds rattle. Ma's long-handled dipper gourd hung by the water bucket my whole boyhood. The martin gourds are the pretty part, a cluster on a pole for the purple martins to nest in. Now folks will tell you the martins eat the mosquitoes. They don't, hardly. That was a birdhouse salesman's tale. But they're fine company, and they'll run a hawk off your chickens, and that's worth a pole of gourds by itself. Number 13, reading the weather, what holds and what don't. The old people read the sky, and some of it is real and some is tale, and I'll sort 'em for you honest. Red sky at night, fair tomorrow. That one holds here. The weather comes out of the west, and a red evening sky is the sun shining clear through dry air that's headed your way. Red in the morning, that clear air's already gone east, and something wetter's behind it. That's real, and the Weather Service will back it. The rain crow calling for rain, that's mostly tale. He hollers on a hot, close afternoon, and those bring storms, so he gets the credit. But the stock getting restless before a storm, that one's real. A cow feels the pressure drop in her bones, same as your bad knee does, and a whole herd going uneasy at once means something's coming. Number 12, the medicine they took by the spoonful. Now this one I have to handle careful because it's real and it will hurt somebody. When a child had worms or the croup or a bad cough, the old remedy in half these hollers was a spoon of sugar with a few drops of coal oil on it, kerosene or turpentine, swallowed 3 mornings running to worm a child. And they'll tell you it worked because it made the young'un sick and threw the trouble up. Hear me now. Do not do this, and I'll tell you exactly why. Because the why is the thing they didn't know. Kerosene and turpentine are made from petroleum, and the real danger isn't your stomach, it's your lungs. That thin oil, if any drop of it slips into the airway, and it does that easiest of all when a body's throwing up, it burns the lung from the inside and brings on a pneumonia that kills. The very part they thought was the cure, the vomiting, is the part that does the killing. They didn't know that. They were doing their level best for a sick child with what they had, and I'll not mock a soul for it. But we know now, and knowing better is the whole point of writing it down. If somebody swallowed it, you don't make them sick. You call poison control. That number's 1-800-222-1222. Ma dosed her children this way and loved them to death doing it. And we are lucky none of us drew it down wrong. Number 11, planting by the signs. Every old garden went in by the almanac. Plant your above-ground crops in the light of the moon, your root crops in the dark, and mind the signs of the zodiac for the day. And I'll give you the same honesty I gave you on the water stick. The moon and the zodiac part, there's no science in it. Nobody's ever shown a bean, cares what sign the almanac's on, and folks have looked. So I won't sell you that, but here's why it wasn't foolishness. That same almanac carried the frost dates and the turn of the seasons, which are dead real. And a man planting by the signs was planting on a careful calendar instead of by guess and laziness. The magic was a tale. The discipline it put on him was worth more than the magic ever pretended to be. Number 10, a catfish on a limb line. Here's a way to catch fish while you sleep, a limb line or a trot line, and it fed families that had no time to sit with a pole. A limb line is just a stout line off a springy willow limb hanging over the water, baited and left overnight. The limb bounces and tires the fish and hooks it deeper. A trot line's the bigger version, one long line clear across the creek or the pond with a whole row of baited hooks dropping off it. You set it of an evening and you run it at daylight and take off what the night caught. The failure is not running it. You leave a fish hooked on there a day and a half in warm water and it's spoiled, or the turtles have had it. You check it every morning without fail. A boy with 3 limb lines kept catfish on the table all summer and never missed an hour of anything else. Number 9, laying off a field on the contour. Plow hillside straight up and down and you've dug a set of little ditches for the rain to run. And the first hard storm takes you topsoil to the creek. The mountain farmers learned to plow across the hill instead, on the level, on the contour, and it saved the ground. Every furrow runs level across the slope, so instead of a chute for the water, each row is a little dam that holds the rain and lets it soak in. The soil stays put. After the dust storms took the plains in the 30s, the government soil men taught this everywhere, and they reckon contour plowing cuts the washing near in half on the right grade. The failure is one furrow that breaks the level and runs downhill. The water finds it and cuts a gully through your whole field from that one careless row. Level or don't bother. Number 8, Greenwood and a draw knife. Here's a thing town people never understand. The old-timers worked wood green, wet, fresh off the tree, because green wood cuts like cheese and dry wood fights you. You'd rough out a handle, a stool leg, a rung, a spoke from a green split billet at a shaving horse, a foot clamp bench that grips the wood when you push your feet so both hands run the draw knife. The shavings come off in long curls. Then you let the piece season and it shrinks and sets hard as iron. The trick that makes it hold forever is drying order. You shape the rung green, let the leg dry first, then drive the dry shrunk rung into the wetter leg, and as the leg dries down, it clamps that joint so tight it never works loose. No glue, no nail. The failure is working it all bone dry and wondering why your joints rattle in a year. Number 7, a collar out of corn shucks. A work mule needs a padded collar to pull against, and a good leather one costs money a lot of families didn't have. So they made one out of what the corn patch threw away, the shucks. You save the soft inner shucks, twist them into a thick, even rope, then coil and stitch that rope into a collar, firm and smooth where it lies against the mule's shoulder. Corn shuck did the same work all over. Mats, chair seats, even a scrubbing mop. The failure is a lump or a hard twist left in it. Anything that rubs becomes a raw, galled sore inside a day, and then he can't work at all. So you built it smooth and checked it. A good shuck collar rode softer than cheap leather, and it grew in the field for free. Number 6, coopering a piggin. Making a watertight wooden bucket out of flat staves, no glue and no tar, is a piece of knowing that looks like a magic trick once you've seen a plastic pail your whole life. You rive the staves, split them, not saw them, so the grain runs unbroken and won't weep. Then shape and bevel each edge so they all lean in and meet. Set them in a ring, drive the hoops down, and here's the whole secret. Put water in and the wood swells and jams every joint shut so tight it can't leak. A piggin is a little one with one stave left long for a handle. The failure is letting it dry out. A wooden pail left dry shrinks. The staves fall loose. The hoops drop off. You kept a little water in it, and the swelling did the rest. Near nobody's left who can join a stave by eye. Number 5, mowing with a scythe and cradle. Before there was a machine to cut hay and grain, there was one man, one blade, and a rhythm, a scythe. The long curved blade takes a wide sweep of grass off at the ground when you swing it right. And right means you let the blade do it, a slicing draw, not a chop. For grain, they put a cradle on it, a set of wooden fingers above the blade that catch the cut stalks and lay them in a neat bundle instead of scattering them, so you could rake and tie a sheaf. Here's the part that's truly lost, keeping the edge. You whet it with a stone every few minutes of mowing, and every day or so you peen it. Hammer the very edge out thin and hard on a little anvil. A dull size is misery. A peened one glides. Skip the peening and just grind it, and you wear the blade up in a season. Pa kept an edge you could shave with, and mowed an acre before the dew burned off. Number 4, a locust post that outlasts the fence. There's an old saying, a black locust post will outlast 2 post holes, meaning you'll dig the hole, rot, and redig it twice before the post itself gives out. Black locust, and before the blight killed them all, American chestnut, those were the fence woods, because the heartwood is so full of the tree's own natural poisons that the rot fungus can't eat it. The Forest Products Lab rates locust about the most decay-resistant wood we've got. They pulled locust vineyard post out of the ground after 40 years, sound. No creosote, no treatment, just the right tree. And there's a trick on top of it. You char the buried end in a fire before you set it. Burning it black turns the surface to carbon, and carbon's not food for rot or bugs, and it sheds water. The Japanese have a name for it, Paul was doing it to fence posts long before he'd heard it. The failure is setting soft pine and wondering why your fence leans in 5 years. Set Locust and your grandchildren mend that fence. Number 3, tempering steel by its color. A blacksmith with no thermometer set the exact hardness of a blade or a spring by watching a color crawl across the steel. And it is one of the prettiest pieces of knowing there ever was. You harden a tool first, dead hard and brittle. Then you polish it bright and heat it slow, and a film of color runs up it as it warms. Pale straw first, then gold, then brown, then purple, then blue. And each color is a temperature. Straw, about 400 degrees, is hard for a knife or a chisel edge. Blue, up near 600, is springy and tough for a spring or a saw. When your color comes, you quench it right there, and you've locked in that exact temper. I dressed and hardened bits down in the mine shop for 31 years, and I learned to read that color the way you read a face. The failure is a dirty surface. One smudge and you can't see the color come, and you'll draw it too soft or leave it too brittle and it'll snap on you. Bright steel, good light, and quench on the color. Number 2, the dinner horn across the ridges. Before a telephone ever came up here, families a mile apart and out of sight of each other still talked, across the hollers with sound. Most every place had a horn, a cow horn, hollowed and scraped thin, or a long tin dinner horn, and a blast on it carried clear over a ridge that would take you an hour to walk. And it wasn't just come to dinner. The blows meant things. One pattern for supper, another for come quick, a long steady blast for trouble, a hurt man, or a lost child. The women sent word ridge to ridge across a whole valley in a code everybody's family knew. The failure was crying wolf. You did not blow the trouble call for a cold supper, ever, because the whole holler dropped what they were doing and came running. That horn was the only alarm there was, and it worked because every soul in earshot trusted it and answered it. Number 1, the man on the other end of the saw. Before the chainsaw, 2 men felled the great trees with a crosscut saw between them, a blade near as long as a man is tall, a handle on each end, called the misery whip by everybody who ever pulled one. And the secret of it is not in your arms, it's in the trust, because you cannot push a crosscut saw. Push on it and that long thin blade buckles and binds in the cut and stops dead. All you can do is pull. You pull the saw to you on your stroke, and then you let it go slack and let the other man pull it to him. Pull and release, pull and release. If you fight it, if you ride it, if you bear down to help on his stroke, you bind it, and you wear you both out and you get nowhere. So 2 men on a misery whip have to fall into one rhythm, each trusting the other to pull his own stroke clean and never fight the saw. You could tell in a minute whether a man could saw with you, not by his strength, by whether he could let go and trust you to take your turn. I sawed timbers underground with my brother for years, in the dark, in a rhythm we never had to speak, and I have never felt closer to another soul than the far end of a saw from a man I trusted. That's the thing that's gone, and it's bigger than the saw. A whole way of working that only ran on 2 people trusting each other and keeping a rhythm neither one had to call. The chainsaw does it alone now, faster, and a man never has to learn to let go and trust the other end. We gained the speed. We lost the thing you only learn with your life half in another man's keeping. Here's my challenge. Pick one and go do it before the snow flies. Cook a tin of char cloth and strike yourself a fire off a rock. Char the end of a fence post before you set it, or just tie a broom, one broom, tight, and sweep with something that'll outlast you. Then tell me in the comments, and I mean this one, What did your people know how to do with their hands that nobody in your family can do now? And what county were they in? What's the skill that stopped with the last one who had it? None of this was ever about the old days being better. Half of what we had was a misery, and I'll not pretend otherwise. It's that these things were understood deep by people who'd have been amazed anybody thought them worth writing down. And they went in the ground, one old man and one old woman at a time. One thing before I go, and I'll only say it the once. Everything I know, everything on this channel, I'm putting in a book, sourced the way we do it here. Every claim with where it comes from, so it's written down and checkable before the last of us takes it into the ground. If you want it, it's at EzraCade.com. That's the only time you'll hear me say it. They knew. Now it's written down.